Chemtrails. Some people believe them to be chemicals sprayed in the sky by planes. And some people claim they actually have a way to combat this. They spray vinegar. Hello all and welcome along to another episode of Tinfoil Tuesday with me, Simon Dan. Thank you very much for joining me. Just a quick one, fans of Zeus will be delighted to hear he has an Instagram account. I'll leave a link in the description where you can go and say hi to him on Instagram and watch him flaunting himself regularly. You can find him at Zeus_the_Maine-Coon1. You can also follow me on Instagram too, where I am less beautiful than Zeus and probably will flaunt myself less, and I am at the Simon Dan. But as I said, I'll leave a link to both those accounts in the description. Right, on with today's video and chemtrails. Now I think it's crucial to differentiate between the chemtrail theory and the regular practices of cloud seeding and geoengineering. And this requires a level of critical thinking and responsibility when discussing these topics. Now cloud seeding involves introducing particulates into clouds that are already there. It does not create new ones in front of your eyes. Geoengineering, or more specifically solar geoengineering in the form of stratospheric aerosol injection, uses particles too small to see. So again, not the chemtrail theory that everyone peddles online. It's very important to understand the chemtrail theory that people talk about online is the theory that they are spraying the skies to do whatever for nefarious purposes. It is not cloud seeding, it is not solar geoengineering. I know the difference between the two. We're talking specifically here about the chemtrail theory. And yes, I've called it a theory, but in the layman's sense, not the scientific sense. Now, as I said at the start, some people think a good way to combat these chemtrails, which they think are being sprayed in the sky, is by using vinegar. And today on Tinfoil Tuesday, we're going to find out just why they do that. Now, we join YouTuber Richard Vobes as he interviews an expert on the topic. And we join them as Richard tells us his secret to keep his car chemtrail free. Here we go.
Well, I do put vinegar into the windscreen thing now. I think, a little bit of organic white windscreen wiper material might well be the answer.
I don't think it is, Richard. It would just make your car smell like a fish and chip shop, really.
So what are you doing then? Because let's just tell some of the viewers who may not have heard about this, but going around, people have sent me this white vinegar, organic white vinegar, as some people say, or other people say, I've just used ordinary white vinegar, not malt vinegar that you shove on your chips. And what do? You heat it up, and the vapours of that are supposed to, for all the way from down here, right up to 37,000 feet, is supposed to dissolve the it sounds preposterous.
Because it is. To think that a small saucer of vinegar is able to be burned enough so that vapours can reach 37,000 feet is worse than preposterous. It's nonsensical.
But you're saying that it does do something.
Just backtrack a little bit then. So I've been on this journey for 7 or 8 years myself.
Well, that's a waste of time if ever I've seen one.
Oh, right.
I knew about this a long time ago. 2020, I started really kind of shouting from the rooftops, doing my Facebook Lives with it and saying, you've got to stop. You've got to look what's happening, because there was a part of 2020 where it was going on, 2019 as well, but 2020 when they were out and about doing their nefarious things in the sky.
So rude that people were doing all that holidaying then, wasn't it? What nefarious thing could he be referring to? Certainly not chemtrailing, of course. But what of geoengineering and cloud seeding? Well, from their accents, it's quite clear that these two people are from the UK, like me. The UK does not partake in cloud seeding. We get enough rain here as it is. And whilst there was a solar geoengineering test flight in the UK, that was in 2022, so after the time period you're referring to. So what you were seeing then were in fact clouds and contrails.
And I was bringing awareness and attention to that back then. And literally I got to the point of about 4 months ago where, I don't know, I just, I hit that brick wall and I was like, do you know what, I'm done. I'm not actually going to share stuff anymore. Like there's no.
Well, because people weren't listening.
I felt like people weren't listening, or it wasn't taken seriously, or and I was like,
No disrespect, but good. I'm glad they didn't.
Let me focus on the other bits that I do, the bits that make people feel good, because that is also important as well.
Now, our guest here runs a website which makes people happier. Whilst I don't agree with his methods, the sentiment is lovely. I just want to make that clear here.
Yes.
And so I started putting my attention to that, and I was literally just about to pull the plug completely on it. Like, I knew what was going on. I'd do my bit, but I didn't feel I needed to shout from the rooftops anymore about it. And I thought, those that have learned, have learned. Those that won't. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, I have stood outside my house at about 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30, when people are walking to work, because it's on quite a relatively busy road. And I've stood there, and the planes have gone like like a nice mown lawn, and you get that stripy effect. It was that. It wasn't crisscross because it was all coming in one direction, but vroom, 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 like that.
At that time of the morning, when the air is cooler, chemtrails, my friend.
Yeah.
And it was so obvious. And I stood there, and as people were walking, I was just looking up. And people walk past you, and they kind of go, what's he looking at? And they do cast a glance. And if they look up, if they sort of went, oh, what's he looking at? I would go, cool, look at that. That's a bit weird, isn't it?
With the amount of air traffic in the world today, I would hazard a guess and say no, it's not weird.
And then they would go, yeah, and then walk on, they just grunt. Some people did actually stop and go, oh, I've never seen that before. And I said, isn't it strange? Here am I on the bottom of a flight plan. We're all, on the south of England here. They're all going over to France and Europe and wherever. And they all come out of Gatwick or Heathrow, and they eventually come over my house, and drop whatever it is. And but you don't normally see it in such. And I said, that is peculiar. And I mean, I knew what it was, but I was trying to just plant the seed by saying, isn't that weird? On the vague hope that they would go to work and say to their colleagues, I saw something really weird. I looked in the sky and it was like, they'd done these, I've never seen. And so, trying to spread the seed so they would go on a journey and find out for themselves, rather than say, hey, look, they're spraying the skies. And then they turn around and go, yeah, get back in your house, Vobes, you're a conspiracy theorist, and all of this.
Well, the flight paths you mentioned will all have come from planes that are commercial. You think that the commercial planes have space to store all of those chemicals and its fuel and the people and the luggage? That is what seems a bit strange to me.
I just thought I'd share that, because this is the sort of thing we're talking about. There we go. Look at that. I mean, that is not normal, is it? That is unusual.
No.
It is, yes, because there are so many contrails. But if you live that close to Heathrow and Gatwick, then I would suggest that that's not unusual.
The Hopi Indians actually prophesied this, but if you didn't know what you were looking at because you didn't understand what a plane was, then it would make perfect sense why you would call it spider webs in the sky. And the Hopi Indians prophesied the webs in the sky.
Wow. Gosh.
Gosh, indeed. Let's get to the vinegar stuff, shall we?
But yeah, so on that evening, I literally received a message from a beautiful man called Mike Wilson. Big shout out to him, because he sent me a message and he just said, Colin, try this. And he said about white vinegar, distilled white vinegar. He said, heat it up so it becomes a vapor, and see what happens, and bring back your blue skies. And I was skeptical.
Well, of course. I mean, a little bit of white vinegar down here on Earth.
Yeah.
Because they are, I mean, they're at varying heights, of course, but you'd think a little I mean, if you puff a pipe, for example, and you saw the vapor, you can see, or you light, I don't know, a bonfire even, the cloud disperse, and you think, well, by the time it reaches up, it's so dispersed, how could it make the slightest difference? So I get
over
you.
repetition
Does nothing. Literally nothing.
So you don't just do one puff of vapor and that's it. It's
No. I'm just saying why one might be skeptical.
Absolutely,
because you might go, well, how can that? What are you doing? You've got to do it a mile long and continually pump it out.
Yeah.
And then you might see.
And that's just lack of knowledge, right? That's just lack of understanding. And I'm not a physicist. I don't understand science very much.
Well, let me help you out. Boiling white vinegar in the hope to disperse what you think are dangerous chemicals spread by planes would actually, ironically, make the air around you more toxic. When you boil white vinegar, the water evaporates first, leaving pure acetic acid. Now, that acetic acid has a boiling temperature of 117 degrees. When that acetic acid is boiled off, the concentration of acetic acid vapours can reach dangerously unsafe levels. Breathing in those vapours can cause irritation to the lungs, the respiratory system and your eyes. You would literally be chemtrailing yourself. I hope that helps. Well, what do we think of that, everyone? The act of boiling white vinegar in your direct vicinity is actually worse than using it for what you think is dispersing chemicals in the sky. Who'd have thunk it? Please, do not boil white vinegar in large amounts. I don't think that needs to be said, but you never know. Right, well, we're all done and debunked for another Tinfoil Tuesday. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the white vinegar theory there. But I've got to say thanks so much for watching as usual. If you enjoyed it, please do consider subscribing to the channel, hitting that thumbs up button and sharing this video too. Just enough time to remind you again, if you want to see Zeus on Instagram, I'll leave the link to his page below. Check it out when you can. I've been Simon Dan. Have yourselves a great day and I'll see you all tomorrow for another Debunking Flat Earth meme. See you then.